Hi, I'm Maureen Taylor, the photo detective. I really love family photographs, all of them. From the mystery images you find in shoeboxes and albums, to the pictures you snap with your digital devices. No mystery is too small. A simple question about an image can lead to new stories of your ancestors. This means you can count on me to help you identify the people in them, offer solutions for preserving and organizing them, and yes, even guide you in the various ways to gather and share picture stories with your relatives. Welcome to The Photo Detective. I'm Maureen Taylor. I'm known as The Photo Detective. And today, my guest is Gary Pajot. Gary is the principal of InfoCircle LLC, a marketing communications company. For nearly 25 years, he was with the Photo Marketing Association International, serving most recently as the publisher with content development and strategic initiatives. His primary responsibilities included overseeing the association's editorial department, marketing research unit, education, and corporate relations department. InfoCircle specializes in business-to-business marketing and business development for photo imaging businesses. Among the company's projects is the Dead Pixels Society, a website and newsletter devoted to the business side of imaging. Gary, welcome to the Photo Detective.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about how the Dead Pixels Society got its name. And it's been you formed it in 2009.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, it really, as a lot of these things go, it started as sort of an inside joke. We were at a meeting, we meaning there was some PMA folks at a meeting, technology conference, and one of our good friends at Microsoft, who at the time was making a point in one of the panels about live pixels, which are the pixels you would see on a TV screen, and dead pixels, which are printed. And of course, some of our members and friends were in the printing business, and they kind of took umbrage at that. And it became sort of a joke. So at the next conference we were at, that this person from Microsoft was at, we launched the Dead Pixels Society to kind of tease this person a bit and had a little fun with it. We came up with lapel pins and things like that. And it just kind of took life from there. You know, the people continued to wear the lapel pins at different events. And it's like I said, it sort of became sort of a little clubby thing. And then over the years, it kind of took on a life of its own, in the sense that we started a Facebook group, and then about 2 years ago, we launched a news website to keep people apprised of imaging developments that are affecting the industry. And then about 18 months ago, we launched a newsletter to keep expanding the market. So that's sort of in a nutshell the group.
And now the Photo Marketing Association is no longer, right? I think you said 3 years ago it sort of came to an end, and it's been replaced with the Imaging Alliance.
Yes. Well, what happened was there were two imaging groups, major groups in the United States. There was the Photo Marketing Association International, which is based here in Michigan, where I'm at. That's actually why I'm living where I'm living, because I moved here to work for PMA. And then there was another group, the Photo Imaging Manufacturers and Distributors Association, the PMDA, which represented the manufacturer side of the business, the camera companies, the printing companies, and those. And so about 3 years ago, those groups merged essentially into the Imaging Alliance. So their membership is really comprised of both groups. It's the manufacturers, distributors, and also camera retailers and folks like that. So,
and my listeners are familiar with Rick Voigt of Vivipix, and he's on the board of the Imaging Alliance.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of the board members would be consumer brands that most people would know. Canon, Nikon, Sony are those kind of people on the board. Also some retailers. The current president, I believe, is from Midwest Camera in Ohio. So it's a good mix of people involved in the industry.
So my listeners are primarily family historians who have photographs, and they need help organizing them or sharing them or identifying them. And that's sort of where I come in. I sort of help them with all of those things. And
Sure.
before I became the photo detective, I was an archivist, and then I worked in publishing as a photo researcher for books. And when I was the photo researcher, I used to go to an event in New York, and I continued to go to that event in New York because I just loved it so much for a number of years. Called uh, Photo Expo Plus, and it
Hmm.
was massive. It was at the Javits Center, and I think it's
Hmm.
still held at the Javits Center. And I would go and just immediately understand why I needed to be there, because I would
Sure.
see the new cameras, I would see the new consumer products, new papers, new printers, new photo organizers. I mean, you can see all kinds of things at Photo Expo Plus, but it pretty much is a pretty techy event for the most part,
Mhm.
wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's really what we would call in the biz an end user event, right? So it's really geared towards everyday people and photographers walking in off the street to learn about the latest. See, like you said, see the latest cameras, see the latest desktop printers. Film has kind of made a resurgence at Photo Plus. You get to see a lot of the output type services. There's usually labs who are there who are showing off their printers or their output, so you'll print through them. Studio equipment is usually represented there pretty strongly. So it's really designed, so people can go there and actually buy stuff, right? So like the big retailers, B&H Photo and Adorama,
Mm,
have big booths there, and so that's really the focus is end user sales and transactions. So, but there is a lot of trade people who go to. In other words, trade meaning the business side of the industry. So that if you're a retailer or if you're an online company or something like that, you're looking for a partnership or you just want to find out what's going on, you would go to Photo Plus too as well. Yep.
right. So are there are there conferences uh, that would be useful for family historians to attend to get that inside information? I'm thinking maybe just the National Genealogy Society conferences like FGS and NGS and Roots Tech, where we
Hmm.
get to see the technology that these companies are presenting on the photo historian level. But I can't think of any, like Photo Expo Plus wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for lots of family historians because it is so techie based, so product based. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to say that because it's a very uh, diverse market right now. One of the nice things about the old PMA show was that it was sort of the home for everybody. So every segment of the business would come there for everybody from camera repair companies to school photo companies and even people who ran education. So it was kind of nice from that standpoint. And since the PMA show uh, basically was stopped happening around the early 2000s. It's kind of diversified. So, like you said, if you're interested in a niche part of the market, like photo history or something like that, yeah, you kind of have to go to a Roots Tech. I've been to a couple of Roots Techs. It's a great show, but you're not going to see everything, right? So it's kind of hard right now, and that's actually kind of the function that the Dead Pixel Society is trying to fulfill. We're not going to have a big trade show like that. That's not the idea, but try and keep people apprised of things across the industry. Kind of the latest in whether it's photo scanners or it's what's happening with some of the bigger companies in the industry. So it is kind of a difficult thing. You've touched on a great point because you can go to a Photo Plus Expo or a WPPI. That's another one of the big shows for photographers. Imaging USA is another big show for photographers, and you may get an insight into the piece of the business, but you won't get an overall picture.
that's right. That's right. So, Gary, obviously, Dead Pixel Society is 10 years old, and you've been in the business for 25 or at least 25 years, right?
A few more than that, yeah.
A few more than that, and I'm not going to own up to it, but I've been around for a little bit longer than that as well. What do you think is the most surprising development in the photo industry that you've seen? I mean, I have my own that I think, oh my
Sure.
God.
Um, well, it's interesting that, a few things have happened that, were inevitable, in the sense that they were going to happen. But I think a lot of people did not expect the speed in which they happened. So I think, speed of change, I think, is something that the photo industry hasn't really anticipated very well. So, for example, everyone knew back in the 90s and early 2000s, film was going to be impacted by digital, right? It was just
Right.
it was one of those inevitable things. But I think people really expected, and I'm not trying to knock any specific company, um, but I think there were certain companies that thought they would have a longer ride with the analog process, that they thought people were going to shoot, once digital became viable, which was about depending on what year you're in, 2002, 2003, from a digital camera perspective, for everyday consumers, not techies. They still thought people were going to shoot some film, and that really didn't happen, right? People just, once they got the digital camera, they stopped shooting film dead. And I think people really kind of some companies didn't anticipate that. They didn't expect film to drop off the table as fast as it did. So, I think that's an insight. I think people, there was some belief that, uh, you never could get a smartphone camera to be as good as they are. And
I can remember
yeah,
salespeople telling me that.
yeah.
Well, you
Oh,
have a
sure.
cell phone, but you really do need
Mhm.
a camera.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, you still do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the things I think that people uh, tend to overlook, is that, standalone cameras are still important. They're just not going to be an everyday of, advice. I had somebody from one of the film companies say, which is kind of funny. He said to me once, photography is more popular than ever. Why are we all so miserable? And it's because the business has changed, where it's diversified where people are spending their money, right? Part of what people used to spend on a camera is now what they're paying for in their monthly bill for a smartphone, right? I mean, people
Right.
are paying 25, $30 a month as part of their phone bill to get the latest iPhone or the latest, Galaxy camera phone. And they're not, that's not money, there's money they're not spending on a Canon or a Nikon. And so I think if you want to talk about what's happening now in terms of what's happening, um, you know, getting back to what I was saying before about the, companies not anticipating, both Canon and Nikon have both shown amazing drop-offs in their business the last couple of years. And they're not really seeing, their projections. If you look at their financial information, they're not projecting it to bounce back anytime soon. And that's because, and this is where I think people didn't really expect it to happen, is, hardware in terms of, cameras, capture devices, is really agnostic now, in the sense that everybody has a great lens, everyone has good sensors. So really now it's all about software. And, where is the best software that people like to use to create images? And it's on smartphones, right? You can't put Instagram on a Canon camera. You can't, put on an image enhancement program on a Nikon. And so,
But if we could.
right, well, yeah, exactly. But my point is it's really now about the software as opposed to the hardware. And the camera industry has really been built around the the hardware side of the business, right? How can we get people to uh, buy another camera, buy a couple more lenses, buy that bag, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's going away. I mean, there will still always be a market for that, but it's going to be less every day, right? Moms used to buy an entry level Canon Rebel or a DS entry level Nikon DSLR to capture those great baby pictures. Well, now they can do that with their smartphone. right? And so I think that if you can talk about what's happening currently, I think, the current challenge is, it's coming down to software.
Mm,
And so, but I'm not trying to paint, on the other hand, I don't want to paint a bleak picture, like from a hardware standpoint. I think people are always going to have picture taking devices, but it's going to be many, many more different ones than just one or two cameras. And the reason why is, think about it, right? I mean, everyone, if you read the photo blogs, the petapixels, the f-stoppers, and the photo blogs, they're all talking about how Canon and Nikon are dying, and what are you going to do about it? Well, it's actually never been a better time to capture images right now, because you do have great smartphone cameras. You do have action cameras. You have drones. You've got underwater cameras. You've got all these various types of image capture devices that people can access and do great things with their pictures with. And it's really a what's that word? A cornucopia of opportunity for to capture images. It's just not going to be with a Canon or Nikon exclusively anymore, or a Sony. I should throw them in there because they're a big player too.
well,
So,
I have a digital camera, but I can't remember the last time I actually used it.
well, and that's the thing is, you can do a lot. I'm obviously amazed with some of the apps that are out there that you can create DSLR type images. They're not actually DSLR images, but they're so heavily processed they can simulate some of the things you can do with a DSLR. Like Apple's portrait mode is
Hmm.
basically, faking out, you to thinking that you're creating this short depth of field image, that kind of stuff. So, and we could talk all day about just camera
We could talk all
technology.
day about this, right? Right. So, a couple of things. One, my mantra is one, back up all your digital pictures, but
Sure,
two, make sure you print the significant ones.
sure.
You've
Yeah.
you've got to print them. You can't just keep them on your computer. You need that hard copy. Do you agree or not agree?
Well, there's a couple of things you really need to do if you're, um, interested in preservation. Part of the challenge we have now as consumers of images is we're just inundated with images, right?
Yes.
You're getting images all over the place. I mean, my family is on Snapchat, and I'm constant. If I want to see pictures of my kids, I've got kids in their 20s, and they send us pictures from their whatever they're doing on Snapchat. I got to take screenshots to save those images to my camera roll so that I can, I have, those are my snapshots now, right? And it's just weird to think about, because those images, if I don't do that, they're going to be disappear.
Right.
Uh, so, in terms of a preservation standpoint, you really have to think of it, like you said, you have to think of it as like a disaster protocol, right? So you really need to have a a some sort of backup source. I know there are services out there designed specifically for the for the archiving community. They claim they're going to keep them forever. I personally, what I do is I back things up. I've got a service that I back it up, just the raw everything up to a service to the cloud, and then I actually keep another copy in a hard drive in a safe. I back those up once a year, just because I don't trust cloud services, that they're going to be there forever.
Right.
So, the beautiful thing, and then there's, of course, the annual printing that needs to happen. What's nice about what's happening today with the cornucopia of images that you have is you can choose to, print the best, most meaningful ones. Back in the analog days, you had to print everything just to see it. And now you can say, no, this is a meaningful picture. I'm going to print it. You still, you haven't lost anything. So
Well,
yeah, you
we've
go
become
ahead.
curators of our collections.
Exactly.
We have to pick out and print the most significant ones because you don't necessarily want to print them all.
Yeah, it's like the old, it's like we used to call them print worthy, right?
Right.
Is this print worthy?
Is this
And
print
so,
worthy? Hmm.
right. And so, that needs to be part of your, decision process, right? And there's sort of, it's just like anything, If you need to find a system that works for you and stick with it. One of the nice things about smartphones, right, is that they maintain some of the metadata that people want, like location and time is very important, right? You don't get that with a printed image, so it's really nice if there's a way you can marry those up, so you can keep that on there. I've actually talked to people about why can't you print on the back of an image the metadata, always location and time from a smartphone image, so at least you have that, right?
Right. Well, one of the companies I work with is called memoryweb.me, and
Mhm.
their photo organizer keeps the metadata with the photo, and then there is a way of uh, printing it out with the picture,
Oh, nice.
saving it
There you
as
go.
saving it as an image that then you can share online, or you could conceivably, I think, print it,
Hmm.
uh, and so it all stays with it. So I
Hmm.
do have a little heartening news for you, which is I live near a very large art school,
Hmm.
and they teach the alternative photography, which means you have kids, students who are creating ambrotypes and cyanotypes, and I don't know if anyone's making daguerreotypes, but they're printing on film and paper and glass. They're bringing back all those. They're bringing back all of those old processes, so
Right.
that maybe it's going to become, maybe we're going to make a shift, maybe there's going to be a shift again.
Well, I don't know if that's actually the greatest. I mean, I think it's great that people are learning the processes. I'm not sure it's useful for most people. I mean, honestly, I mean, from a standpoint of, some of those older processes, they weren't really great for the environment, for one thing, a lot
No,
of
no, they weren't.
them.
They were not.
So, the other thing that's interesting is, you are seeing a big resurgence in the interest in print among younger people. I mean, like right now, Fujifilm and Polaroid and even like the small pocket printers are big right now. So like the Fuji Instax camera for a couple years has actually been one of the top gift items on Amazon in the camera category every year for the last couple years. And it's primarily, teenage girls taking pictures. They want that hard copy print. Pocket.
My daughter wants one of those printers.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. Yeah. I mean, and they're printing like crazy, and yeah. I mean, it's great, and that's great for the industry. Also, most people don't understand is you can print on a lot of different surfaces now. They usually think just paper, right? But you can, for those really print-worthy images, you can have images printed on metal, on canvas, on acrylic that are just look unbelievable. So, and again, you're gonna, it's not as cheap as getting a roll of film processed back in the day, but for those great pictures that really mean something to your family, get those things on a wall or create a photo book. I mean, you can have a photo book made now. The hot trend in photo books is the lay flat books with silver halide paper, like what people used to call real
Whoa.
photo paper, right? And they're lay flat, right? So there's no gutter, and they're gorgeous. A lot of wedding albums and things like that are made with that technology, and it's really kept the color photo paper business alive as sort of that sort of presentation. Not to say there's anything wrong with inks. I mean, ink technology has come a long way uh, for printing. Some of the inks now are, the experts will tell you they are truly quote unquote photo quality.
Mm.
So they, you can't tell the difference, but I mean, most people can, but most, but inks last forever too. I mean, that's one of the things is from a longevity standpoint, color photo, silver halide, uh, photo, especially photo prints made in the 60s and 70s, they do fade.
They do.
So, which, throw a shout out to our mutual friend Rick Voigt. That's what his software fixes.
Right.
Um, but it's, you're probably going to have less need for that from stuff printed today going forward.
And that's good news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can pretty much, if you have stuff printed now and take care of it like you ought to, right? You don't leave it in a damp basement or whatever. Those images are going to be around for a long time, especially if you have a digital backup somewhere. Definitely some sort of cloud service or a hard drive or something like that. Don't go to any kind of removable media if you can avoid it, because who's got a CD-ROM these days? And how many pictures? I cringe when I think of the people who back in the day, in the 90s and 2000s were getting their images back. They would get photos on floppy disk, which was a thing. And then they got pictures on CD, which was a thing. And maybe some of those formats may or may not even be readable now.
Well, you might not have the software to read them.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you had, back the hot product back in the early 2000s for digitization of images with the Kodak Photo CD format. And it was huge at the time. Most people today are like, photo CD, what's that? But it was actually built in native on the Mac platform, so every Mac could open up a photo CD, and it was a proprietary format. And now very few software programs actually still support the photo CD, and it was a publishing standard for years.
Oh, let's talk about disc film. With those teeny tiny prints. Teeny tiny, negatives. God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and then you've also got, that's a great point. People keep holding on to negatives, thinking that they're gonna they fade as well.
They do, but I advise my clients to keep their negatives.
Right.
I think they faded. I just tell them they should keep their negatives. To keep the prints, keep the negatives.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying is that you just hope somebody somewhere down the line is going to be able to scan it.
One hopes. One hopes. So anyway, Gary, it's been great chatting with you. But before we go, let's talk about the Dead Pixel Society again, just for a little bit, because I just love the name of it. So who can become a member of the Dead Pixel Society?
Well, it's we're open to all. It's basically the idea that it's come and just see if it's for you. You'll know if it is. If you're looking for photo tips, it's probably not for you. If you want to find out what's happening in the photo industry, there it is. There's no membership fee or anything. The newsletter's free. We just have some very generous sponsors who help support the venture. That's what keeps it afloat. So it's if you're interested in joining, like I think we mentioned offline, when we launched the newsletter and the website, we kind of thought, it's a niche group, probably the universe of people who would be interested would probably 400 people, and now we're almost 600 subscribers. We're getting good traffic on the website, and so if you're interested in that sort of thing, please swing by the Facebook page. We also have our the website. You can sign up for the newsletter, and eventually we just had our first event, a small conference in April. We look for having another one next year.
Great. Well, I'll look forward to getting news of that on the Facebook page and in the newsletter, both of which I have liked and subscribed to.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So thank you, Gary, for joining me today. And I hope all of our listeners enjoy hearing us debate the future of photography.
Well, it's not going away. It's just going to change.
It is. So do you have photos that you'd like to organize, identify, or share? Don't forget to check out my courses on MaureenTaylor.com. And I hope you've signed up for my newsletter, which you can also do on the website. So thank you, Gary. I look forward to having another conversation with you in the future. Take care.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can submit your questions for future episodes using the Ask Maureen button on MaureenTaylor.com or through any of my social media contacts. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as The Photo Detective and on Facebook at Maureen Photo Detective. I hope you'll come back for the next show. Don't forget to send me your questions.